Good morning and welcome to Inside Tennessee. I'm your moderator, John Becker. Our focus this morning is on the race for Knoxville mayor. Let's show you the candidates. There are four. That includes the incumbent. You see her on the end there, India Kincannon, looking for another 4 years of leading the city. Constance Every is a social justice and runs a nonprofit. She's a leader in our community. Also, R.C. Lawhorn, he's a business owner, and Jeff Tallman is a mortgage broker and developer, banker, I should say. And we welcome you to Inside Tennessee this morning. We've had all the candidates in and talked to them for lengthy discussions about a series of topics that include public safety as well as what they do about homelessness. But we're going to begin with housing. That is something we've heard familiar throughout this campaign, is the need for more housing. Here's their perspective, and we'll talk about it momentarily.
For them, if you want to have a discussion on equity, call me. I'm available, because what we do is create real equity. So I know housing. We've got a real housing discussion going on at the moment. We've got what I call a disequilibrium between supply and demand. Some people call it a housing crisis. I want to think of it as a housing opportunity where we have unique demand, which we've talked about a little bit, to build the city in ways nobody's talking about.
And really double down on our efforts on housing and reducing and ending homelessness and preventing homelessness. And that's reflected in the budget, but I think it's going to be even improved in the years to come, particularly our office on joint office on housing stability.
With the county.
With Knox County, yeah, that's an unprecedented collaborative effort, and I'm really pleased to be working with the county on that, because homelessness is certainly a community-wide issue, not just a city issue.
We just had a recent report come out that showed that 75,000 or less a year is only able to afford 12% of our housing market as we speak. We know that our property values have went up by 40%, and we're unfortunately dealing with some of the outstanding backlash, particularly from that to our pocketbooks. And so my concern is definitely trying to find ways that we can return some of that affordability and, more importantly, increase that affordability.
Times are hard. We're going through a lot of tough times, and you know, when you look at raising property taxes, it's a tough time on people to be doing it. If I'm elected, there won't be any property taxes raised. I think if we audit the budget, there's a lot of places that we can cut a lot of fat out of it, and we can get it under control, and there won't be a need to raise taxes.
Perspective from our candidates who came in to talk about the issues. Back with our panel on this Sunday morning. John North is my colleague here at WBIR. Good to have you with us this morning. Susan Richardson Williams and Don Bosch are with us. Susan's a Republican, Don's a Democrat. She runs her own PR firm, he runs his own law firm. So we're here to get their perspective on what it takes to be mayor. And before we get to your reaction to those questions about housing, I want to just show people what it is, the responsibility when it comes to becoming the mayor and what you're responsible for in terms of a budget. Again, there are about 1,900 people who work for the city, and this is where the money goes. 40 cents of every tax dollar in the city is spent on public safety. That is our first responders. And you can see the other slices of the budget, but the majority makes up police, fire, other first responders. Okay, let's show you where it comes from. And you can see here the majority of it coming from taxes, half of the budget coming from property taxes. We did see Mayor India Kincannon raise the property taxes to pay for a raise for first responders in her first term. She is seeking a second term. So back to our panel. Susan, your first response and reaction to what the candidate said about housing.
Well, I think we all know we have a housing problem, and there was some survey that was recently done that showed we really have no affordable housing, and rent, as we know, rent has gone sky high in our city. So people that are on the middle income to lower are really having a difficult time finding places to live. So I totally understand what Constance was saying, for instance, and I do think we have a problem with that. There's been a lot of talk about middle housing, duplexes, for instance, being put out in where there are single-family homes. That's a little controversial, and not all neighborhoods want that to happen. But clearly we have a housing problem here. They all have addressed it somewhat. Mayor Kincannon has talked about putting additional money and so forth. But I think it's something whoever is elected, the next mayor, is really going to have to get down, dig deep, and figure out how we solve this, because we got people moving in, we don't have housing, and what we have is not affordable.
Don?
Well, what I found interesting, Susan's identified the problem, and frankly, outside of Mayor Kincannon, who has the power of incumbency and can say what she's done in her first term, the other three candidates really just said, yes, we've got a problem. But no one's come to the table with potential solutions or framework for solutions. You know, we've got one candidate saying, I'm not going to raise property taxes. Well, that's great. I'm not going to raise property taxes. We got other candidates talking about, you know, the different types of housing problems. Even Susan, you know, talks about we've got this spectrum of sort of lower middle class folks that can't find, we don't have affordable rentals. You know, we need this mid-tier product or even lower tier product that people that can pay something can rent. But no one's coming to the table outside of the mayor talking about the coalition with the city of the county and having raised property taxes, having, you know, done some concrete things to say, look, this is what we need to do. We need to build duplexes. We need to zone some areas. We need to incentivize that. That's maybe how we use the money. We need to have a qualifying program. We need to have mental health facilities where we can do transitional housing. You know, no one's come to the table and say, this is what we need to do, and this is how we're going to pay for it.
John, in fairness to all the candidates, they've said a lot more about housing. You've been at a couple of forums. We only have about 30 seconds in this block, but your take on what they said there, but also what you've heard attending other forums.
Yeah, I did hear some more specifics. There was a League of Women Voters forum a couple weeks ago. Constance Every made some suggestions. Progressive, arguably progressive. Are they realistic? No, not necessarily. Like take city-owned land, maybe do something with that, put some land in a land trust. Not sure that's going to happen. It's an issue that's resonated, like with Lawhorn. He's talked about it as well. I don't know how much really the mayor can do, how many levers the mayor can plug, but we've seen that Kincannon has been doing that, trying to do that, pledges she's going to do it more. It's obviously an issue. It's not going to go away. It's like Susan says, this is a big problem.
Yeah, it is. All the candidates have said that, and it's how do you deal with it going forward. We're going to talk more about issues that all of them raised with us, coming up with more of our discussion right here on Inside Tennessee.